is about when your client approaches you and they ask you kitna lagega, what is the price, how much are you going to charge, and most of y'all are like, I'll get back to you, let me calculate, let me figure, right? So today's session is going to give you a lot of clarity is how to package your services, how to price your fees, and how to actually have that conversation where you're ready with your stuff. Like 90% of your things will be ready. So maximum, if you have to get back to your client, it will take you 5 minutes, not a whole day, not calculating the whole BOQ and all. So the concept is what? The concept is that you give them a basic ballpark figure with the scope and everything. And only if they decide that, okay, this is fitting in my budget, then you spend the time to actually create the entire BOQ and all, which is step two, which we're not discussing today. Today, we're only discussing step one is how to price your packages and how to price your fee, not just the package of
So,
what
the
all you'll
topic
be
is
delivering.
building a
Yeah.
three-tier pricing ladder.
So a lot of the times, I feel like when clients reach out to you, you'll usually end up giving one single price, right? Now, human psychology is such that people like choosing. So I always say a good number for that is three. Of course, you can do 5, 10, 15. But I feel like when you have only two, it becomes too little. When you have more than three, it becomes too overwhelming and confusing. So as per my experience, a good sweet number to reach is three. So how you should price it, right? Now, what happens is when a client reaches out to you, you end up just giving a list of things you are going to be doing for them. For example, you'll be like, I'll do the mood boards, I'll do the drawings, I'll do the BOQs. Yes, this is important. But clients are also looking to understand when they buy from you that how are they saving time? How are they actually going to make a beautiful home? How are they going to avoid making mistakes? Or how is their whole experience going to be stress free, right? Because it's not just about the documents, but the end result and throughout the process, what they feel and experience is even more important, right? So, how you should do your services. In the previous session one, you all have had an idea of what your top three services are, right? On top of that, I have also given you feedback written in your previous form and what I feel should be your top three services, keeping in mind your niche, keeping in mind what you're already good at, right? So, for example, let's say your services should be based on the client's outcome. So, let's say if a client comes to you and they're like, I don't know where to begin, right? So, what is the outcome that they want? They want to have clarity. So, what should you offer them? You should first offer them a consultation. You shouldn't directly go into a whole package because it's not going to connect with what they want, right? Because sometimes what happens is when the client says, I don't know where to begin, and if you will be like, okay, let's do your entire house, they are not ready for that in the mind. And that is why sometimes it's not the reason of price that they say no, it's because what they want is not what you're giving them. So start baby steps. First, understand what the problem is. If the problem is they just don't know where to begin and what to do, first do a simple design consultation. Make this paid. I'm not saying do it for free, but offer them a design consultation, right? Second problem what they have is I want someone to design my house. Okay, so then, but sometimes they'll be like, I want someone to design my house, but I have contractors or I have a team of people who can execute it in place. In it's a situation like that, their outcome means they want somebody who's trusted, who has the experience to help them do the entire designing when nothing goes wrong eventually. So what you should offer them, this is just an example. I'm not saying this is for everyone. Then what you should offer them is an entire interior design package, right? Which includes all your drawings and everything, but no execution. And then there are some clients who will come to you, who will be like, I want everything handled. I just don't have the time, energy to do everything. So, what is the main outcome that they are looking for? They're looking for something that is stress free. They're looking for something that where somebody can handle everything for them. So, for someone like this, is when you should offer the entire turnkey package. What does the turnkey package include? Includes your designing with the site management and entire execution. So these are the most basic three things offers that you can do. And we don't want this to be generic where it's just design consultation. So if you guys see in your own workbook one sheets, I have specifically written in your design consultation what you can offer, in your packages what you can offer, right? But have you all understood that how you should talk to the client? Because if the client says, I want only designing, and if you're pitching to them a turnkey project, or if they're saying that we are still in the starting stage, we don't know anything, and you're pitching to them a whole design package, do you see how sometimes it's not matching their outcome and you're pitching the wrong thing to them? Have you been confused on what service they should offer, or have you just been like, I do only one service where I do design and execution, and it's going to be this much lakhs of money, you either take this or you don't take this? How you should understand how to base your service based on the client outcome, right? The second thing is, now, the second thing, how you should understand the scope of work, right? Now, usually when you're designing for a client, there's a whole journey that happens. What are the four top journeys that they expect? One is the planning stage, second is the designing stage, third is the execution stage, and fourth is the support you give besides for all of this. And what happens is that when you're pitching for this project, sometimes you forget to mention about the support, which is something that you are anyways doing, but the client doesn't realize the amount of extra work you're doing. So to mention to them what all you are doing, including all of these four stages, is very important. These are not all of them in each stage. I've just put in a few for example. For example, in the planning stage, you can have the consultation where you have the questionnaire and understanding the client. You can do the space planning. You can do like sometimes you can ask them that, do you want vastu, or do you want to just help with the colors? That's in the planning stage. In the designing stage, it's more about the mood boards, the technical drawings, including the furniture, lighting, false ceiling, the materials, the 3Ds, right? That all comes in the designing. Once the designing is done, it comes into the execution, going to the sites, managing the sites, coordinating with the contractors, the vendors, ensuring the materials are coming in, going in time, quality checks. Also, sorry, quality checks comes in support, my bad. In execution, we also have the BOQs, the payments, what money is coming in, what money is going in, how much they're spending, the handovers, the final snag list, right? All of this comes in the execution. So when you don't mention to your client you're doing all of this, they don't understand how much work you're doing, because unfortunately, in our field, people think that designing is just take a piece of paper, draw, and it comes to life. They don't really understand how much goes into it. So, as a designer, it's important for you to understand what all comes into it to be able to explain to the client. And then the last, fourth client journey is support, where you actually do the quality check, you actually help them with the shopping, you make sure you're accountable at all the time when they need you. You figure out what is one day of the week that you will meet them to finalize all the decisions, understand if they have any problems. Continuously, you're on WhatsApp. You usually have a WhatsApp group, right? I don't know how you guys do it. Usually, for me, I used to have a WhatsApp group with either one person from the client's team or two people from the client's team, and then me and my team. And if you don't have a team, then just you as a designer, right? So, having that constant conversation with the client, understanding which cost is more or less from which like vendor, right? All of that comes into the support. And all of this nobody mentions when they're giving the code. So, how you should, before you give the code, you should connect on a call with the client and explain them this entire journey from the to the support stage. Because most designers, they only talk about this, sometimes the execution, they'll maximum only talk about this and this, they won't talk about this and they won't talk about this. But when you package the entire thing that I am going to be there from day one to day end supporting all of this, you see the chances of them comparing you to another designer becomes very little, because now you are no more doing what every other designer is doing, you are giving so much more. And trust me, you were still doing all of this. But the client, you were not having that conversation to inform them what you were doing. So, do you think that it would be important when you talk to the client, not only to understand what their problem is and give them a solution accordingly, but to actually explain them the entire process from the beginning to the end, how much more you are giving to them than any other designer? Do you think this will put you in a more better position than all the other designers? This part is the most important, the support. Because what do people need when, for example, when you are designing something as big as a house or an office or a hotel, whatever your project type is, right? What is it people are most scared about? That what if this person leaves me midway? What if some in conflict happens? What if this happens? What if that happens? So if you give them the guarantee that no, we're going to be there for you, we're going to help you with these things, automatically that fear of should I hire this person, or that question should I hire this person becomes much, much lower. So keep this in mind for sure. So any questions so far? Because then I'm going to go into the pricing part. Any questions in
हाँ,
the outcome
ये
and client?
स्टेप टू का जब आता है, जब हम ये इंटीरियर डिजाइनिंग पैकेज के बारे में बात करते हैं, तभी हम पूरा पैकेज उनको ऐसे लिख के दे सकते हैं.
So even if let's say they're not doing the turnkey packaging, right? You can still,
हम्म.
even in that you will still need the planning, designing, and support. Only the execution part will go technically. And if
Okay.
you're only doing the consultation, then you will still have planning and support. But the point is, support ideally is there in every single part in just different variations. For example, if you don't do turnkey, then you may not have like all of these supports, but you will still have that accountability. You will still be there by their side to help them if they are stuck, right? But
हम्म.
mentioning that when you're talking to the client is very calming to the client. Like if I imagine if, let's do an example, right? One of your, let's say you all are the clients and you'll reach out to me and you'll be like, hi, I want to design a space. What all can you help me with?
हम्म.
Designer one. I do mood boards, furniture layouts, lighting, and I can help you with the materials. I can also make the 3Ds. It's going to help you view the place. Designer two. I can help you design the entire space based exactly as per your requirement, making sure that it's functional, super easy to use, and super friendly maintenance wise. And in the entire process of whatever number of weeks or months you all have decided, let's say in this example, in the next 3 months, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to walk you through everything that I'm going to take do with you, which includes the planning, designing, execution, and most important, how I'm going to support you and your family to get your dream space in full ease and stress-free methods. Now, how I do that is, and then you explain one, two, three, four. I'm not going too
Okay.
deep into that, but do you understand
Okay.
like how you
Yes,
talk
yes.
to them makes all the difference?
हम्म.
And how and another one, I'm not, that was not part of my session, but I just thought of it. So one more thing that you can always do is when you connect on a call, we'll be doing this in the last session, but when you connect on a call, right, when the client calls you, just be like, hi, I'm so and so, introduce yourself, let them speak for the next 20 15 minutes. Don't speak at all. Just be like, can you tell me a little bit about what you need? For 15 minutes they'll go on a rant, and then whatever they say to you, for example, when I've done this, someone has been like, I have this issue and I have this issue. When you pitch for them, right, you add that in your support journey. For example, someone says, I feel really overwhelmed, I can't decide what to do. You can tell them like, oh, I'm definitely going to help you understand from all the selections you've made on Pinterest, which one is going to be perfect for you, where it's not going to cost you too much, it's going to look amazing and your vibe. You
हम्म.
get it?
Yes.
So based on what they say, you tweak all of these points. Don't be a robot. Don't be like, I'll do quality check, I'll do shopping. Like tweak it in a sentence based on what information they have given you. And we'll be doing a whole session on sales call practice, so you will get a better understanding of this. But do you
For design consultation, I mean, I mean, can we charge for that, or we shouldn't charge?
Of course, you should. You should charge. In fact, it obviously there's no one fixed answer. There are a lot of people who don't charge, and there are a lot of people who charge. I always say if you charge, like I have been someone who always charges. So how I do it is I'll be like I'll put a small amount, right, which I'm going to be coming to in the next part. But just to give you a brief, if supposing my charge is usually from 1,000 to 10,000, like that's the normal range of a consultation, basic consultation, right?
1,000
And
to
in
2,000.
1,000 to 10,000,
Yeah.
depending on how senior experience,
Yeah.
what all you're delivering, all that. Usually the basic is 1,000 to 10,000, right? And in that consultation, what you have to do is you have to basically understand the client and give them a little trailer of what all needs to happen. Don't give them everything,
Yeah.
right? So what happens is when you don't do a paid consultation, a lot of the clients don't take you seriously, right? Even if it's a matter of 100,000 rupees, it's not the amount of money. It's about them taking you seriously. Like I know a lot of designers who do free consultations, and
Yeah.
then what happens is the client will go to you, the client will go to 10 other designers, and at the end of it, you don't have the project because they are just shopping around, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you add a small fee, whether it's 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, whatever you're comfortable, right? When you add that fee, only a client who is genuinely interested to buy from you will actually even pay that amount. And then sometimes what, this is not a fixed rule. But what some designers do is they say that, okay, if you do go ahead with us on the project, we will adjust this amount in that. You don't have to do that. Some people do that.
So
हाँ हाँ
does
sir.
yeah, just does it also include like the first basic code that we give to our clients?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. But you think the clients, I don't think so. Generally, they agree for this first initial. So, I mean,
So
this is the first. This is the cost for the first meeting itself.
no, so this is the whole session I'm going to do with you all on the client journey of start to end. But to give you a quick summary, how it helps is that first there is a filtration process. So before you get them onto that consultation call, there is a few onboarding filtration processes to make sure if they even fit your budget, if they fit your timeline, if they fit all of that, right? Only if they do all of that, this is the final stage of consultation. This is not the first step, right? So we will be doing a whole client sales pitch journey where I'll explain to you is first time how you contact the client, after they or if they contact you, what should be the next message you should send them. After that message, how should you filter that they are the right fit? And after that, where do the questionnaire, do the proper consultation.
Yeah.
By then the client and you are ready to be like, okay, this person will come on board or the person will not come on board.
Okay.
So
हाँ
that's how it
तो
is.
एक क्वेश्चन और तन्वी कि जैसे
Yeah.
कोई भी क्लाइंट यदि पहली बार मिलता है तो यदि उसके साथ हम पहले जब बात करते हैं तो वो हमसे यही कहता है कि मैडम आप मुझे इसका लेआउट एक इस करके दे दीजिए। अब वो जो एक लेआउट होता है उसकी तो हम ऐसे बोल नहीं सकते ना कि इसकी हमारी कोई फीस होती है, जैसे हम 5,000 बोले या 3,000 बोले, क्योंकि वो तो होता भी है कि भेज भी दो उसके बाद भी वो नहीं कंफर्म होता है।
Never send it. Never. When
तो
you go to
उस
the
वक्त क्या करना
doctor,
चाहिए
does he do a free consultation for you, or does he say, "Come to my clinic, I'll do your diagnosis, and then I'll pay, and then you pay me"?
हाँ तो
Would
उस
you?
वक्त क्या करना चाहिए? उस जब हम मांगते हैं तब तो वो मना ही कर देता है कि मैडम कर देंगे, वो तो जैसे भी आपने बताया ना कि 5,000 या कुछ भी, तो वो नहीं देते हैं। मतलब उनको ऐसा होता है कि आप शुरू तो करिए फिर देखते हैं, ऐसा बोलते हैं।
No, no. So don't worry. This actually is like one of my favorite topics. It's going to take me 2 hours to explain just that. So next session is going to be content, and the session after that is going to be literally the client sales journey. So I'll explain you the whole thing exactly how to avoid those questions, what to say when they say those questions, and everything, right? But first, before you do all of that, I think it's important to understand what your pricing is to even have that conversation. So today my session is about how to price your package, and then we will do a whole session on because you can't have that conversation until you don't know what your pricing is. You won't have that confidence and you won't know how to talk to the client. So that is why step one is to know your pricing, and then we will do another session where I'll explain to you how to dodge those questions which the clients ask. What is your charge? Can you do this for me? Then we'll see how to do it. I'll trust me. I'll do a whole session on that. Is it okay if we do it on a? So don't worry. We'll be. This was just like the thing is. I want to explain you the concept. We'll go very deep in this whole client journey. But my idea to share this was that don't only talk about one and two. Talk about the entire journey when you have that conversation, right? Now, third step is actually to understand how to even charge the client a project cost. So normally this is with execution, this part which I'm talking about. If you're not doing execution, then the execution part comes out. So normally there are three components that happen. One is your design fee, right? Which the interior designer receives. The second is your material and miscellaneous items which you buy, which normally the vendor, whichever vendor you're buying that material from, they receive it. And the third is the execution cost, which is usually received by your labor, your contractors, right? Now, design fee. When you say the designer, the interior designer, that is, you get the amount. First, let's understand what it covers, right? Usually it covers that entire stuff which I showed you in the design and all of that, which normally includes your consultation, your mood boards, all your drawings, your BOQs, your site coordination, everything. This is again for a turnkey contractor, a turnkey project. If you don't have a turnkey project, then of course the site coordination will get out of it, right? Second part which comes is the materials. Now, if you're buying your plywood, you're buying your laminates, you're buying sanitary, tiles, all the materials you buy, right? That usually goes to the vendor, whichever vendor. Supposing you have a plywood vendor, supposing you have a sanitary vendor. Sometimes you have one vendor which does multiple things for you, right? Or you can have individual vendors. So all those materials ka cost which comes in goes to those vendors. And the third is the execution cost. So let's say your team of contractors. This is normally a carpenter, electrician, plumber, painter, all your entire team which is there, they receive this payment, right? So just to give you a very, very simple ballpark figure in this example, how I've explained to you is if let's say if your design fee is 5L, I'll come to the whole thing of how to get the design fee and all, don't worry. I'm just giving you an example. So let's say the design fee is 5L and your material cost is let's say 30L and your execution cost is 15L. So your total will be 50L. So the breakup of 1, 2, and 3 is what gives you your total amount. Now, another way how to calculate this is to first calculate the material and execution and then figure out your fee. Either it's on, I'll explain to you three methods on how you can charge your fee. But before we get into that, did you understand the components on what you need to consider when you are charging for a project? If you're not doing execution, if you're not doing turnkey, then this will go away. Then you'll only have your design fee. If you're doing design with only project management, then it will be 1 and 2. And if you're doing turnkey, then it will be 1, 2, and 3.
Design fee and execution cost is where we are this amount 15 lakhs is going to the contractors, right?
Yeah.
So okay, so this design fee 5 lakhs also includes our execution fee, like what we are doing for.
Yeah. So that's why I say I've written site coordination, client meetings. I've mentioned that.
Okay, fine.
So everything that you and your team of designers, if you're an individual designer, great. If you have a team of people in an office, then everyone in that design team, when they do all of this work, there will be a price to that. So normally the design fee includes all of that, everything that you will do as a designer. The carpenter electrician will actually do the physical work, right? Like they will actually make the table, they will actually do the painting of the wall.
Yeah.
But your supervision to make sure that all of this is happening comes in your design fee. It should all be included in your design fee.
Yeah.
Even going for the material selection, selecting the materials, all the tasks that you do, it should all be in your design fee.
So we only mention it as design fee to the clients, not like design and execution fee.
I normally just write design fee and maybe verbally I discuss it with the client. If the client seems really confused in life, then what you can do is you can write under design fee, you can write a one detailed paragraph of what all it includes to be safer. You can do that.
Okay.
But this is more for first you to understand what all comes under it. Then only you can explain it to the client.
Yeah.
Right? So the professional design fee, whether it's you individual or it's an entire team of people under you, you usually cover all of these things. Like I said, if it's not turnkey, then the side coordination and certain things will not be part of it. But everything else that comes under your services should be ideally under a design fee. And everything that you buy that is not part of your thing, like if you're buying a mat, if you're buying a plant, if you're buying a sofa, if you're buying lights, if you're buying the shower, cubicle, whatever, every material that you are buying from another person, that should ideally come as a material cost. The reason why sometimes I write miscellaneous cost, because there are small things like deep cleaning, pest control, there are sometimes services, right, which cannot be technically a material you're buying. So miscellaneous is usually those kind of services which you execute, which your contractor is not doing it, right? There's a separate agency which comes and does it, right? Like a pest control, your carpenter is not going to do, or deep cleaning, your electrician is not going to do. So miscellaneous cost usually includes all of that as well. As agencies, this is the second part of the costing which comes in your total packaging. Again, if you don't have execution, you're not doing turnkey, then this part will not come into it. Execution, that is the actual doing, the actual contractor doing the labor, actually your carpenter making the door, actually your plumber making the piping of the bathroom, actually your electrician fixing the switchboard. They normally have a rate list, they normally have a cost, right? So don't stick to this exact number. This is just an example. Below I'm going to explain to you how to get this amount, but first understand that to get a package cost, you need to include a design fee, a material and miscellaneous services cost, and the execution cost. And that total gives you your total project cost.
टोटल कॉस्ट आपकी 50 लाख आ रही है ना सबके साथ मिला
हाँ,
के। तो यदि
हाँ,
हम किसी के साथ बात करते हैं तो वो हमसे पूछता है कि मैडम टोटल कॉस्ट, जैसे यहाँ पर अहमदाबाद की हम बात करते हैं तो 3 BHK 18 से लेके 25 के इसके बीच में होता है। तो हमें उसको ये सारी चीजें बताने की जरूरत नहीं है, हमें तो खाली उसको यही बताना है ना कि इसके अंदर आपका सब कुछ आ गया। तो यदि वो मटेरियल खुद ही अपनी तरफ से बाय कर रहा है तो वो हमारा प्रॉब्लम नहीं है कि हम उसको ये बताएं कि 30 लाख का आपका मटेरियल आएगा। वो तो उसकी चॉइस है, वो कहाँ से लेता है और कहाँ वो उसकी यदि कोई शॉप पहचान की होगी तो वो वहां से लेगा। फैब्रिक वगैरह भी जैसे यहाँ पे सब लोग वही करते हैं कि यदि हम ट्रंकी प्रोजेक्ट करते हैं तब ये शायद सारी चीजें हमें लगता है कि जरूरी होंगी।
That's what I said. If you're not doing the turnkey, then this and this point 2 and 3 will not be included in your cost. If you're doing turnkey, then 1, 2, 3 will be included. If you're doing only designing, then only 1 will come into your cost. But even if you're only doing designing, there is a lot of times that the client will ask you, approximately how much will my project cost come up to? Right? And if you don't have an answer to that, then they will start doubting you as a designer, even though that's not part of your scope.
ऐसे ये तो 5 लाख तो खाली कंसल्टेशन फीस हुई, ओके। उसके अलावा पूरा प्रोजेक्ट तो आपका जो हो रहा है वो 20 में हो रहा है, तो उसके अंदर कारपेंटर भी आ गया, प्लम्बर भी आ गया, इलेक्ट्रिकल भी आ गया, सारी एजेंसी आ गई और मटेरियल भी आ गया। तो वो टोटल कॉस्ट तो आपकी 18 से 20 होगी। लेकिन यदि आप डिजाइनिंग फीस खाली इंटीरियर की बोलते हो तो वो खाली 5 लाख होगी, जिसके अंदर उसका सब कुछ आ जाता है कि वो कैसे ड्राइंग देगा, कैसे वो 3D प्रोडक्ट करेगा।
Yeah. So as a there, I think you all are getting confused. Okay, so one is if you're just doing the designing, then you will say design fee is 5L, where I will do the consultation, 3D, BOQ, design, coordination, etc. Right?
Yeah.
You will not mention anything about the material execution cost. But there are some clients out there, even though they only want your design fee, they still want to have a rough idea that even if they buy the materials on their own, or if they have their team of contractors, roughly what would be the total project cost? And when they ask you that question, if you say that I don't know, that will depend on your contractors and materials, that client has gone. You are not getting the project.
हाँ, मतलब वो पूछ सकता है कि मैडम कितना खर्च आएगा यदि हम करते हैं, या उस हिसाब से। वो बात सही है।
So the idea is not, maybe it will not be exact 30 lakh, maybe it will not be exact 15 lakh, but to give them a ballpark figure, what happens is that you seem confident that you know that, even if you're not giving that service. So they will hire you. They will hire you as even just a designer because you have given them that ballpark figure. Now, how to get this ballpark figure is what I'm coming to next. But do you all understand that whether you're doing only designing or whether you're doing only turnkey, it's important to have an understanding of what all your package should cost and what all it should include and how much knowledge you should have about what is going where. Is that part clear?
Yes, clear.
Yeah. Okay. So now to understand like how to get to these numbers, right? There are going to be a couple of things I'm going to be sharing. One of them, okay. So normally what happens is that you have two types. You normally have a mid client and you have a high client, because not everyone is going to do everything, right? So this is a very approximate understanding of how to charge your designer. You understand that there are three parts, right? One is you understand for designing any space, right? You have a designer fee, like we discussed. You have a material cost and you have an execution labor, which gives you your total. That is what we understood from the previous table. Now, how do you get this number, right? As a standard understanding, of course, there will be little ups and down, 5% up and down for every project based on the client, based on the size. But as a basic understanding, the method is that for a mid-budget client, for someone who's not, I'm not talking about low-budget clients, because when I spoke to all of you over here, none of you all were interested in low-budget clients. You all were interested in mid-budget clients and high-budget clients. So I have made this table specifically for these two types of clients, right? Now, what happens is the mid-budget client, usually regarding whatever the project size is, your design fee is approximately 10%. And the material cost is usually then 60% and the execution is normally 30%. Like I said, it can be 5% up and down, but overall, keep this in mind, that when you are designing a project and you have to do a quick calculation or you have to give a quick answer to somebody, don't sit and make those long BOQs, because we all know how time consuming that is. Do a quick calculation and understand that 10% will go in this, 60% will go in this, and 30% will go in the execution, right? So there are a couple of ways on how to do this. Do you want to do it in a lump sum way? Do you want to do it in a percentage way? So let's say for a mid-sized client, right? Now I'm considering this as residential spaces, because offices and hotels are a little different. For residential spaces, let's say if it's a 1 BHK to a 6 BHK. A 1 BHK, usually your charge for all of these services I'm talking about, only these services, right? Let me show this together so it's easy. For all of these services, let's say your amount is 1 lakh for a 1 BHK, right? Then the material cost as per that would be around 6L, and the execution would be around 3L. So the total would be 10L. This is for a 1 BHK mid client. Now, let's say if it was a high ticket client, the same thing, your design fee is usually 15% at least. This is something minimum, okay? It can always be more. Minimum I'm talking about. The material cost is around 55%, and your execution labor stays the same 30%, right? So when we do the same calculation for a 1 BHK, your design fee would be approximately 2.25L. Your material cost would be around 8.25L, and your execution would be around 4.55L. So in a 1 BHK mid category, it was coming up to, let's say, 10L. In a high ticket, it was coming up to 15L, right? This is a basic understanding on how to get it. Depending on which city you are, depending on the project size, there will be minor ups and downs. So don't stick exactly to this. This is an average cost as per overall. This is an average costing which I have worked out with couple of designers from mid range to high range, and this is how they charge. Understand that basically a designer fee in a mid range should be minimum to minimum 10%. Do not go lower, otherwise you are not going to make profits and you are just going to be putting in effort. When it goes to a 6 BHK, when you take a 10% mid range, your fee should be nothing less than 7L. Your material cost would approximately go to between a 40-45L, and your execution would approximately be 20-25L, right? So your total project cost would be at least 70L. Sometimes it can be 1 CR, but like I said, this is a basic minimum. It should not go below. It can go higher. It should not go below than this if you want to make profits in your business, right? Now, let's say if you say you're from Gujarat, you're from Hyderabad, you're from Bangalore, let's say if you're from Malaysia, right? So the rates may differ a little bit, 5%, 10% up down, but it will not differ majorly. If you're charging much lower than this, then you need to rethink your prices, because you are not going to make profits. Same thing, if you do a 6 BHK, you should get 30L because you deserve 15%. The material cost is going to go up to 1.1 CR, and your your execution should be 60L, right? This is what it should be. Now, of course, if you're a complete beginner designer, I understand that you don't want to charge so much. Then go for the mid range. You can see how much difference it is. Today, I charge these amounts, but why? Because I didn't start like this, right? When I started, I used to charge lesser. But trust me, now, if you are good at what you do and you can talk to your clients, you can charge these amounts. You definitely can. But if you just tell them firsthand that I'll only do the BOQ designing drawing, that client is going to run away, even if you tell them that your cost is 10,000 rupees. Because the problem is never the price. The problem is you not explaining to the client the entire journey, the entire understanding what their problem is, understanding how you're solving the problem for them with the right offers, and then explaining to them what all services you are going to be providing in terms of the deliverables as well as adding emotions. We'll come to the emotion part when we do the client journey, but the idea is that how you communicate it and what you mention is all to be included. So we'll understand on how you should charge the designer fee also. There are a couple of ways. You don't have to do percentage. There are three ways that you can charge a designer fee. But before we get into that, I wanted to understand if you get a basic breakup on how to calculate your fee, how to calculate your material, and how to calculate your execution. If you're not doing turnkey, then it will only be the designer fee. There will be no material and there will be no execution. But still, having the knowledge, I feel, is important because it puts you above any other designer. Now, let's say if you quote all of this, right? And then the client says, no, 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 this is too expensive. There are methods. There are methods to divide it into two phases. But why should you go lower than this? You tell me, when you're designing a 1 BHK, how many weeks does it take you? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, how many weeks? Sometimes with execution, it can go up to 2 months, 3 months. If you don't earn at least 1L, what is the point? What is the point of doing this service? Today, if you have an office, you have electricity bills, you have so many bills to pay, right? If you're not going to make a basic of 1L, do you really think there's even point? And if you're doing a high-end project, if you're not going to get at least 2.5L, is there even point in designing that 1 BHK? Tell me.
We are on the same page. We should be able to talk and get this kind of money.
Right? And honestly, I'm not talking like just I literally charge these amounts and I'm not making this up. I charge these amounts, but trust me, when I started, I was also charging like 7%, 6%, and then I'm realizing that the amount of effort and
Yeah.
time it takes to do the work, if you're not going to get that profit by the end of the project, how are you going to be motivated? So what I say is, don't do 100 projects, right? Do 2 projects, do 3 projects, but do 2 to 3 good projects where you can give that much time to the person and expect this much money from the person. And when the client is happy, imagine that one happy mid-level or high level client will introduce you to another mid-level high level client. It's just dominoes effect then.
Yeah. So Tanvi, like these charges, you were able to charge after how many years of
See,
working?
now it's been 10 years, but I think since the past 4 years at least, I have been doing, like, in fact, I even do sometimes more, but depending on the project size and all,
Yeah.
I literally charge these amounts.
Yeah.
Like, I remember in my second or third year, for a 3 BHK, I charged 8 lakhs. Like, that is here, right? I remember this was like, yeah, in my
For
third
a
year or
3
fourth year.
BHK in your third year.
Third year around. But again, I'm talking about years back, right? Now things have increased, prices have increased. So back then, in my second or third, I can't remember, second or third year around, I had that time charged 8L just for a 3 BHK. Simple.
But
But
that's
this
also
was
a very good rate for that. I mean, for this time also.
but that's what I'm saying. I'm no different than you. The problem is how you communicate to the client.
And which city
Right?
was this, Tanvi? This 3
This
BHK?
was in Mumbai. This was actually in
Bombay. Yeah,
Mumbai.
Bombay you are, yeah.
Yeah. But trust me, even today, right, when I'm talking to people, because now I design pan India, I'm getting projects from Gujarat, I'm getting projects from Delhi, Calcutta, Pune, Bangalore, like you name it, Hyderabad, everywhere, right? I still quote these amounts because I feel like there's that scarcity in the market saying that if you're from a specific city, you can't charge high. I understand, I agree that every city has a separate fee. I understand every city has a different way of thinking, but today, if you are going to do exceptional work, if you are going to put in that hard work, you are going to spend so many weeks. You need to upgrade, right? You've been stuck on that certain amount for years. Like some of you I know are just starting out, but I also know some of you who've been in this line for a few months or for a few years, right? So you can't be stuck to what you're starting. So I say, okay, maybe first 2 projects, first 3 projects, go a little lower. But as and when you build confidence, these prices should be your aim to reach to. I'm not saying the first ever project you go start with this. So maybe the first ever project, if you've never designed, if you're starting completely new, go a little lower. But eventually, after a few months, after a few weeks, try starting to do this. And when you're increasing your fee, right, the processes you do to make that client happy into design also matters. And that entire client journey, which we'll be discussing, that matters the most. Because trust me, when people say now that no, this designer is too cheap, I mean too expensive, I don't want to work with you. I will tell you situations where I have quoted an X amount to the client. The client was so happy with the project, he gave me an extra advance, an extra amount after the project. Why? It's not like he had tons of money, right? What equates is if the client is emotionally happy, they will not hold your money. They will not think twice. But I understand if they don't know you in the beginning, how can you do that, right? So that I understand comes with experience. But to build that system, to explain that process to the client of what they're getting is going to make it a lot easier. That is why your content on Instagram, which we'll talk about, all of that will build trust. All of that will make you seem more superior to any other designer out there. Today, why do I get 10 calls in a day? Why? I'm no genius. I'm no genius, I promise you. I was someone who didn't even know what I was Googling. I remember a few years back, what is interior design? What happens in it? I had no idea, right? But slowly, I learned the process. And then I realized the way you communicate it makes all the difference. Today, how many people who you know have expensive cameras, go on expensive trips, go on buy expensive phones like iPhones and all? How do they buy it? They don't have the money. They say they build the money. They build the money to get that outcome, right? To get that dream. With so much money, or do you think that when they really want something, they actually use the right ways to earn that money to spend? Today, how many people have fancy cars, fancy phones, fancy? I'm not getting to the materialistic world, but I'm trying to say that today, if somebody wants something, they don't mind spending as long as they know that the end value is worth it. And that is what you as a designer have to reach out to the client to tell them. Today, it's never about the money because people would not buy those expensive things if it was about the money. Or forget people, why do you today you have a dream to buy something? If you really want to tell me one thing that all of you all want to buy, if you all really want it, won't you figure out God knows how you will make that money to get it? Or will you say, no, that's too expensive, I'm never going to get it? Be honest with me. So why can't the client do the same? Anybody wants something, let's say if you have a dream that you want a specific phone, you want a specific house, you want a specific car, you want to go on a specific trip, whatever it is, you know that it is out of your budget today, but will you not figure out anyhow how to get that money to get it because you see value from it, you see some end product from it? It's the same thing with designing, because today people are designing their dream homes, their dream offices, their dream resorts, whatever it is, right? So it's the same desire. You have to buy that phone to go on that trip. They have it to design their house. So you have to connect with their emotions. That's the only way. For example, you won't believe it. I remember last week, this one person called me up, and you know what his message is? Ma'am, I really want you to design my house. I know you're going to be out of my budget, but you tell me the fee and give me a few weeks. I'm going to arrange for the money and we're going to work. I didn't even mention what I do. I didn't even mention what the fee is. He assumed my fee is going to be out of his budget. But he was so sure that I'm going to give him what I give him and how. He's never met me. He has no idea who, I don't even know who he is. How? Because of my content. Something in my content related to him gave him the thing that, okay, she's good at what she does. Imagine he's only saying that I will not be able to pay you your amount, but tell me your amount and in a few weeks I will arrange for it. Now explain to me from what you're hearing, what is this concept? The concept is when somebody finds the value, even if they don't have the money, they will figure it out. So the problem is not always the money. The problem is how you're positioning yourself, what are you providing to the client.
I want these numbers.
You will get it. The whole point of this mentorship is to first give you awareness that you can get these numbers. And second is that if you want to get these numbers, how do you reach to these numbers? It's very simple. Right? So understanding first is most important is to understand the problems. I know I keep emphasizing on the problems, but literally, you know what? Today, forget designers, forget houses. Today, y'all six are on this call. Why are y'all on this call with me? Was there something on my page or something when you spoke to me or some conversation that you and me had that made you realize that, okay, this was a small amount. It doesn't matter. I know people will pay 5 or 10 or whatever, right? Even for this service. But what is it that connected with you? That something she's going to teach me, something she's going to show me is going to add value to make me a better designer or to help me get clients or whatever your outcome is, correct? You have to do the same for your client. What is the client's out goal? It's very simple. I want my dream space to be about me. I don't want to overspend. I want it to be stress-free the entire experience. These are the most common. I went through all of your sheets, right? More or less, all of you are boiled down to the same 3 to 4 points, few ups and downs. I don't want to waste time. I don't have the energy. I don't have the expertise. I don't want it to be stressful. More or less, and I don't want it to look different from my lifestyle. More or less, all of you are boiled down to the same pain points. Now that you know what your client pain points are, you communicate it to them in the same manner, so that these numbers which you saw on the screen, trust me, they will not be looking at the numbers. They will be like, when can we start? They will be like, are you available to do my project? It will be them begging you, not you begging them. Because just simply by the way you communicate, no fancy way, no ads, no paying them amounts, no nothing, just the way you communicate and you connect to their emotional points. It's as simple. I promise you, I'm not making up these numbers. You can and you will be charging these amounts, but before that, first it's important to understand your packages, which I'll be discussing now. The entire breakup is, right, of the entire project. Now let's say you want to understand how to only charge your fee, right? How to charge your fee, there are normally three methods, right? One is lump sum, a fixed fee. Second is a per square foot fee, and third is a percentage fee, right? Now let me explain to you each in I'll explain to you what how each of them work, and what are the advantages, disadvantages, and which is better for which kind of project. So, for example, the first method is lump sum fixed fee. Now, what is a lump sum fixed fee? It's basically when you have one fixed fee for one set of fixed scope of work for that one project, right? So, for example, let's say you have a 3 BHK, right? And your scope includes, in technical terms, space planning, mood boards, 3D views, working drawings, BOQ, right? And you say that your design fee, only the design fee, is 2.5L. Okay, this does not include the execution cost, only your design fee. So when you give them an amount of 2.5L, this is a fixed fee. This usually does not change unless there's some major change in the scope. Minor changes in the scope, the amount stays the same. So I normally do not recommend this if you are doing design and execution, because 110% you end up not making the profits you deserve. This is always recommended if you do only designing. This is the best way to earn maximum profits. But if you're doing execution, I do not recommend this method at all. You can, I'm not saying you can't, the choice is yours. But as per my experience, the lump sum method is best for only designing without execution. And how this works is like, let's say, I mean, the advantages of this is it's easy for the clients to understand, right? They just know that this is the amount they have to pay. There's no like, oh my God, how much do I calculate? What do I do? You know that this is going to be the amount because you have pre-calculated these amounts, so that you know that if you're going to get a 3 BHK and you're going to charge them, let's say 2.5, you know that by doing this project, there is no way that you are going to make a loss, because you have already predetermined these amounts. Right? Now, why is it disadvantages for if you are doing execution? Let me explain to you. Let's say if you had a 3 BHK, okay, and you told the client you're going to be doing the designing and the execution, which includes design, material, and the contractor labors, right? Now, what happens is along the process, let's say the entire process is 4 months long, okay? Let's say by month 2, the client has given you X number of changes. Let's say by project month 3, the client has given more changes, and by month 4, the client has given even more changes. Now what happens with the lump sum amount is, it is very hard to convince the client to pay more, because they're like, these are just small changes, just do it. Whether you have contracts, whether you say number of revisions, yes, all of that helps. But at the end of it, the to convince the client midway that this is going to charge extra with a lump sum amount during execution, trust me, with my experience, I can tell you it becomes very difficult, because there is no exact math to prove your thing. Like, for example, if they'll be like, I want to change this door from red to blue. I mean, okay, these are very weird colors. Let's say from beige to gray, right? So for them, it's like, this is a small change. But for you, now let's say if the door was already painted, if Duco or whatever was already done, for the painter to remove peel it off and repaint it, redo the thing, it's going to be a certain cost. right? But it's going to be very hard to explain the client this when you have a lump sum amount. So in my experience, if you're doing only design, use this. Because what happens is if you had agreed for 2.5, right? And let's say these minor changes happen, the client will still end up paying you 2.5, maximum will make it 2.6 max, right? But you have done so much more work by the end of month 4 that you will not feel that you've made any profits at all, or at least that the profits you wanted. So are you understanding how lump sum works? Whereas if you're doing only designing, I highly recommend this because you have a fixed scope. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 things, and you have a fixed amount. And then what happens is if they'll be like, okay, now if supposing your scope was I want to do space planning, mood boards, 3D views, working drawing, etc. Now let's say if they say I want to add an additional electrical layout, I want to add ceiling layout. Now it's very easy in a only design thing to be like this will be extra charges because it's measurable. The changes are measurable. Whereas when it's on site, you can measure only to a certain extent. You cannot extend that from this switchboard is moved from here to here, how much extra wire is used, or if one light switch went off, like things like that. It's hard to measure it. Whereas in an only design thing, it's very easy to measure because you have 5 things. Okay, you're adding 2 more things. There will be extra charge for these 2 more things.
So Tanvi,
Get it?
like, we should mention it to the client earlier only, like only these number of changes are allowed. If we are like doing, suppose a project where we need to do a lump sum with execution. Okay, the situation is like that. So there, the clients can go up to, they can behave in a way and they can be like, they can add 5, 6 changes and, non-stop. So in that case, we should tell them initially only, right? That key only up to
So
3.
you should tell this. You should regardless say that. Like you normally have a contract, right? In that you
Yeah.
write how many changes. You will do all of that. I'm not saying that the client will not even pay more, but I'm saying the number of changes that happen on site is very hard to keep track with the minute changes. Like okay, if it is a major change that okay, you're gonna be breaking like 4 walls and rechanging the entire thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that change can be incorporated. But can you tell me when you go to site the number of minor changes that happen?
Yeah, yeah.
Switchboard
We
has
cannot
moved
even
from
calculate that. Yeah.
switchboard has moved from place A to place B by 1 foot.
Yeah.
Now, for the
That,
client, it's not even a change. But for you and your electrician, he is going to do a whole new rewiring, which is an additional cost. How are you going to explain that to the client?
yeah.
It's going to be hard. I'm not saying you can't, but it's going to be harder, that
Yeah,
conversation.
100%.
So I'm not saying you should not. There are always 3 methods to do it. But if you have a choice and if there is any way you can, I always recommend lump sum only for designing. I have seen people who've done lump sum or in the second option, which I'll explain to you, square foot. I am very against square foot. I have never used square foot till date. Whether
Yeah.
it comes, whether I feel it's the most in my personal
But I think
experience.
maximum designers, in especially like
Yeah.
cities like Bombay, they are all going by square feet
I
only.
never do square feet because I don't know when. So when I had just started designing, I had done a practice where I had done some projects on lump sum, some projects on square feet, and some projects on percentage, which I'll come to in option 3, right? In my experience in all these last 10 years, there's only one method with designing and execution that has always and always got me lots of profit, and that is percentage. And I'll explain to you
Percentage, yeah.
price 3.
And
Because I'll
Tanvi,
tell you
just
square
want
foot
to,
also, I'll tell you what happens, right? I'll option 2. Guys, the choice is yours. Please don't always listen to me. Like, try it out yourself and figure it. I am only telling you what has worked for me and a couple of designers I have been close with and got insight from them as well. And in the past 10 years, I am telling you what I feel about these 3 ways of charging. If you feel personally something is specifically working for you, please feel free to. Right now, my idea is just to explain to you what are the 3 types. You can do experiment with yourself on all of these 3 yourself and then take a call, right? So what is option 2? Option 2 is per square foot pricing. Now let me explain to you how this works with an example, right? So now let's say if you have a 2000 square feet and your design fee rate, which I have given you 3 options. For beginner, it's usually 50 to 100. For intimate, it's normally 100 to 250. For experienced, it's 250 to 500, and luxury goes beyond to almost 1000, right? So now how this works is, let's say if your rate, your square feet area of the place is 2,000 and you are charging, let's take 150 between beginner and intimate. Let's say if your rate is 150, right? So you will do, can you see my screen? You will do 2,000 into 150, which gives you approximately 3L, right? So assuming that it's a 2,000 square foot office, you have told that the charge is going to be 3L as per assuming that you are between a beginner intimate. And what how this is going to what this is going to do is, now let's say in a 2,000 square foot office, sorry, 2,000 square foot house. Now tell me something, you can have one person who has a 2,000 square foot office, 2,000 square foot house can have 3 rooms, 3 bathrooms, 1 kitchen, 1 living room. Another person who has a 2,000 square foot office can have 4 rooms, 4 bathrooms, and 1 living room, 1 dining kitchen, right? Now tell me something. If you're doing it square feet wise, the same project cost, which was for 3 bedrooms, would charge lesser than a person who's doing 4 rooms. Do you agree?
One extra room, our work as designers increase, right?
But you are still going to get only
Yeah,
3L
it
as
doesn't
per
make
this
sense.
calculation, correct?
That doesn't make it's not profitable for us then.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying there's a fixed yes or a fixed no, but think of it logically. You are only going to know the details after you have shared the rate. So let's say you have shared the rate with the client and then they tell you your requirement. Now you are stuck with this amount. You
Yes.
don't know if they're going to create 3 rooms or they're going to create 4 rooms, right? So
Hmm.
that is why for me personally, I am not very big on this style, because I feel like, okay, if it was only 3 rooms, it's beneficial. But if it was 4 rooms with 4 bathrooms, it's not beneficial. Try it out, see what works for you. This is basically only the design fee. I've not included execution fee in this at all for this example, right? The advantages of this, it's super easy to calculate. You just do square feet into the your fee and you get the amount. It's easy for them to compare projects, right? It's like project size. If it's a small project, you get less. If it's a big project, you get more. It's easy to calculate again. The disadvantages I have already told you, that let's say in the same space, if you have more requirements, you end up getting the same amount. So this is usually good for builders, for developers. Why? Because they are not so keen about the internal this thing. They know that, okay, they already know how many rooms are coming, they already know everything, right? So for them this is easy, this works for them very well. But for a designer, when you don't have enough information from the client and you feel like you're going to end up spending, like using more of your expertise and getting less, I don't see the point of doing that.
At the 3D stage, and the client says that they want to make a few changes. So I have to go back to the layout. Now I want to charge the client for because of the changes they are making.
Correct.
So how do I calculate that, and what option is the best for such instances?
So firstly, can you tell me in this specific scenario, what is the method you have used to charge? Have you used percentage, square foot, lump sum? What have you used?
Percentage.
Percentage. And is this a design with execution or how is it?
Design with execution.
Design with execution, right? So um, let me just answer that in 1 minute, because I'm literally going to be explaining that next, and then I'll answer your question. Is that okay?
Yes, हम 150 स्क्वायर फीट के हिसाब से अपना रेट दे रहे हैं. लमसम में हम
हाँ.
लमसम में हम कैसे देंगे कि
So see over here, I did technically put it here, right? Like if you see 1 BHK, 2 BHK, 3 BHK, lump sum amount also I have kind of put here if you want to see. I did, you can even take reference from here, because this is just to give you an example, but you can always refer to this table also for the amounts. Like it depends, right? Is it mid ticket? Is it high ticket? If it's only design, if it's with execution, that's why I've made this table.
Tanvi, I want to ask one thing. Like design fees, when we take turnkey projects,
Yeah.
so execution fees, if you divide it like separately, design and execution, so
Yeah.
for our calculation, so execution fees will be definitely more than the design fee. Suppose the design fees is suppose 2 lakhs.
Yeah.
So the execution for that particular, suppose 2 BHK, as you mentioned somewhere, it's 2 lakhs, right?
Here I'm sharing it on the screen. Yeah.
Yeah, so execution cost will be way more, right? Like it's 4.53 lakhs that you've shown for a turnkey.
Yeah, here.
Yeah. So, just for a rough, like in calculation, like an overall, like always as a turnkey, the execution amount should be way more than the design. I mean, it should be like a percentage more
Both
than.
of, see, both of these are turnkey. Okay, don't get me wrong. Both of these are turnkey. This is just a mid-budget client, and this is a high-budget client. For example, if in a 1 BHK the client wanted to spend 10L, and your design percentage is approximately 10%, right? This
Yeah.
design fee, don't forget, this design fee of 1L in this example, it includes all of this.
Got it.
This
Got it.
includes the execution. So
Yeah.
let's say if you're saying you don't want to do the execution, right? If you don't want to do the site and you don't want to do the client meetings, then it
Yeah.
will again change based on your deliverables. So then maybe instead of 1L, you can make it 90,000 or 80,000,
Yeah.
right?
So that's what I want to just understand, that what percentage should an execution amount hold? Execution fee
This
for.
is with execution. This designer fee in this specific table, this is with the designing and the execution.
This is with everything, yeah.
This is
And if
with everything.
suppose it was only
And if you
design,
don't
it
want
would
to
have
do
been.
execution, and
Yeah.
if you don't want to do, that's your question, right? If you don't want to do execution, if you don't want to do execution, then percentage as per me doesn't work. Then square feet or lump sum works better. If you don't
Yeah.
want to do execution, because
Yeah.
percentage cannot work without execution, right? On what basis will you do the percentage?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when it comes to only designing, then I would highly recommend that you only stick to these, like these lump sum amounts, or if you want, then you can do it square feet, but I've already told you what I feel about it. In this case, if this was 1L with designing and the execution supervision, etc., with the designing you can basically reduce it by like 10-20,000 throughout, because
Yeah.
that's how much extra would be there, right? For all of these same
Yeah.
amount, can reduce it by like 10% throughout every. Option 3, right? Option 3 on how a designer should charge their fee is percentage of the project cost. So let me give you an example. How it works is, let's say if the project total cost was 80L, right? And your percentage in a mid budget one was 10%, right? So you will get 8L. It's a Siddha math, right? But how do you get this project cost is when you actually do the whole BOQ understanding, right? So that is something that you have to calculate in a percentage. But a quick understanding, if you don't want to sit and do this whole calculation, is I always say go back to your last 3 projects that you have done. This is only for people who have done projects, right? Go to the last 3 projects that you've done. Go to the total of the total BOQ cost that you had at the end of those completed projects I'm talking about. Whatever that amount was, you divide that by your square feet without the design fee. So let me give you an example. Supposing you were doing a 1 BHK, right? And let's say the cost of the 1 BHK total, right, was approximately, let's say 20 lakh, or let's say 10 lakh. Okay? For why I said 10 lakh, right? Divided by let's say 1,000. Okay? So the amount is 1,000. So you know that the square feet rate for the project cost, not for your fee, for your project cost was around 1,000. Supposing, go back to your last 3 completed projects. These are for people who've already done their projects. Let's say the total amount in your BOQ minus your design fee. Huh? This is only for the material and labor. Let's say the total was coming up to 10 lakhs. Okay. And let's say the total area of designing the space was around 1,000. Rate of the project cost was 1,000. But basically, when you get this 1,000, right, you know that an average project cost for which you are doing all of your work is 1,000. So you will do 1,000 into the square feet just to understand what the project cost is. You will not tell this to your client, right? You will give them the lump sum like that. So, for example, if but realistically, 1,000 is too low, right? When I have done this calculation, for me, the most basic to basic comes to at least between 4.5 to 6,500 per square foot for any project. This is specifically more in Mumbai with designing and execution. The rate over here is starting from like 4.5 to 6,500 per square feet, right? This is only for the project cost, not your design fee. This is only for the material and execution. So because I know what that rate is, I
This
know that
is,
I will.
sorry, Tanvi, this is for like a luxury project you're talking about?
No, this is a basic. Luxury goes up to 10,000, 12,000 over here. So this I'm talking about starting budgeted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say like an example I can give you in Mumbai, the rate is starting from, let's say, basic, right? 4,500. So what you lose 4,500 into whatever your square feet of the project is. This, I remind you, this is only to calculate the project cost, not your design fee. So whatever amount you get, right, you do a 10% on that, which will give you your design fee. The reason of doing this is simply so you don't have to make those long BOQs in the initial stage. Of course, later on, you'll have to give them the breakup of this cost. But this is just to understand what your percentage fee will be before you go ahead with the project. Example I gave you for the designing, like for a percentage, like you should charge between 5 to 15% for only designing, and for turnkey projects, depending on the project size, it ranges from a 7.5 to a 30%. This is a standard. I think this is all across. It's not just here, everywhere. Again, this is only designing. So I feel like most of y'all are starting out, you should at least do a 10%. Don't go below. Percent of whatever the project cost is, you will get in this scenario. Let's say the project cost is 80L, right? So 10% of 80L is 8L. So you will get 8L.
पहले पूरा बीओक्यू तैयार करना पड़ेगा परसेंटेज के लिए आपको पूरा बीओक्यू पूरा तैयार करना पड़ेगा.
So that's what I'm saying. If you don't want to do the whole BOQ for the beginning stage, see, eventual stage, so you will have to do it. But if you don't want to do it for a beginning stage, like that's what I'm saying, get that rate for yourself. So go back to your top 3 projects that you've done, right? The top 3 projects that you've completed. These are for people who already have projects. For people who don't have projects, I'll tell you. But for people who have projects, what you do is you look at the top 3 projects and you divide the total cost with the square feet of that specific project. You will get an approximate square feet rate which has been going on. Take the average of those 3, that is your project cost rate. Time from actually making those long BOQs. And for those who don't have it already, I can tell you that don't go below 4,500. You are going to make complete loss and a complete mess. Basic, I'm saying this is from any city you are, any country you are. Below 4.5, I don't think is even humanly possible if you are using basic laminates. Basic, I'm not even talking about marble veneer. I'm talking about ekdam basic. Like cheap base, not cheap, but very, very budgeted materials and budgeted contractors. Below 4.5, I don't think it's even possible right in this time and this age. So if you don't have a rate, I would say start with 4.5. If you do have projects in the past, I would say go back, calculate your top 3, divide the total amount without your design fee included, divide that with your square foot. You will get an idea what that square foot is, and I'm sure it's going to be around 4.5 plus only. Multiply that into whatever square feet your client is giving. So that will be the project cost approximate, and then calculate your percentage on that. And what are the advantages of this is that every time, okay, so why, let me tell you why I like this, the way of doing it. Every time there is a change in your project, especially for turnkey projects, this is great for turnkey projects. What happened is when that one switchboard has moved, when that one extra coat of paint is done, that is going to get reflected in your BOQ. Every time that cost in the BOQ is going to increase, your percentage is automatically going to increase. So for every extra change the client is making, it is automatically getting updated into your design fee. Whether it is one extra coat of paint, whether it is one switchboard moving, whether it is one extra plant being added, because it is getting added every time in your BOQ. So if the project cost is increasing, your percentage is increasing. Like the percentage is 10%, but 10% of that is also increasing. For example, if originally this was 80 lakh and you had done 10%, you were getting 8 lakh. Now let's say by the end of the project with multiple changes that happened, let's say it became 90 lakh and your rate is still 10%. Now you are getting 9 lakh for this same project with the changes. The advantage is that the fee increases when the project value increases. And why is this not hard to explain to the client? Because when the switchboard is moving, you have measured the wire, you can add it in your RFT, right? Like when you guys make a BOQ, I don't know if you guys are familiar, we'll do the BOQ part, but when you do the BOQ, you can tell, right, that the RFT is the running feet. So if the wire size was, let's say, 4 RFT, which is 4 running feet, and now let's say the switchboard is moved by a foot, so it's become 5 RFT from 4 RFT. The rate also, the total amount of that wiring charge also increased, right? So automatically, when you add all of these small changes, your total project cost in the BOQ increases, and your percentage is calculated on the total project cost. So every time the project has changes and the price increases, by the way, this is both, it can decrease or increase, but we all know that it never decreases, right? It always increases. So assume that it always increases, your fee is always going to increase. Right? And you were asking me, right, in that project which I did few years back, I did a 3 BHK, I did it as a percentage. The project was originally coming up to approximately 7L, and with the increases, by the end of the project, I got 8L. So this is how my fee increased while the project was increasing. You're getting it? And the chances of the client to argue with you is nil because it's in front of you. You had already agreed to the percentage. You have increased the project fee. And if some of you ask me, like how Kamakshi asked me that, okay, if they make changes and all, right? So normally what happens is in this percentage amount, right? You have two parts. You have the design part and you have the execution part, right? So normally what happens is in the design part, you have in your contract mentioned the number of changes you will do. So supposing you had gone for the 3D part, you were asking me, right, Kamakshi? You were saying that if they make changes in the 3D. So in your 3D part, in your scope, let's say you had written that up to 2 changes are allowed. Let's say, right? Let's say they've done those 2 changes and now third change has come. So before you make that change, before you make that third change, you mention to them that we had agreed to 2 changes. If you're going to do a third change, that is going to be an extra amount. And but the percentage will not change. The percentage will still be 10% only. Right? But what you will do is in your BOQ, where you have written 3D views X amount, right? In your BOQ, you will have the details, right? In your design, whatever. So in that where you've written 3D views, instead of like, let's say if you were charging them 15,000, for that extra change, let's say if it was 1,000 rupees more, it will become 16,000. Just giving a random number. So when that total amount increases, your fee will increase at the end of it. So your percentage will not change. Your percentage will still be 10% or whatever percentage you decided. But that individual scope which you've put into your BOQ, that will increase with the number of changes that they're asking you. Because 3D views is not part of your percentage, right? So you can add that as a separate amount. For example, when I do my BOQs, my design fee, I don't write services like 3D views ka cost in that because I outsource my 3D views. If you are a designer who does your 3D views yourself, fine, no problem. But I outsource my 3D views. I outsource my site supervisor. So all of these costs, I write separately in the BOQ.
Okay.
So every time there's an increase or there's a change, I update it in my BOQ, which in turn increases my fee.
And how do I calculate, let's say, 3D views or site supervision fees?
So 3D views usually, this is, are you doing it on your own or are you getting it executed?
No, it's just hypothetical.
So it depends on the situation. If you are doing it on your own, then you usually have a package where you'd be like for 1 BHK, it's this much, 2 BHK, it's so much, 3 BHK, like you normally have a package. And when you are outsourcing it from someone, they usually have a per room cost, or even sometimes they have packages, right? So you already predetermine that before taking up the project. Like you know that for a 1 BHK, I need so many angles, so many rooms, so many whatever. So you know how much the amount is going to be. So normally the basic again I'm talking about, usually when you get it made, people charge minimum of 3,000 for one room, minimum. It goes up to even 5 to 8,000. But minimum people charge at least 3,000 for one room. I'm talking about ekdam basic. The charges for 1 3-day view for one room is usually 3,000. Is after you've given all of these prices, right? Just to ensure that the payments are coming on time, I highly recommend that you have a payment system structure, which again, this can be percentage or this can be lump sum, but you should have an understanding that by doing this scope of work, you will get this amount. By doing this, you will get this amount. By doing this, so that by the end of it, before you hand over the project, you should not have anything more than 10% left. 110%, this is my guarantee to you. If you don't want your money to be stuck towards the end of the project, make sure that before the last few weeks of your handover, you don't have maximum more than 10% left for the client to pay you of your total project cost with the design fee. Just keep this in mind. And you should always take in advance as well.
So this
Yeah.
is only for those designing and not executing.
No, even for executing.
So for
Even for
executing,
executing.
there will be a different percentage for, as in for designing fees, let's say the first payment I take is a 40%.
Yeah.
Including all design. And then for execution, what percentage should
So
I?
what I do is I take an advance of at least 40% because I feel below that is absolutely crazy. So I have never taken below 40%. In fact, sometimes I take 50%. But depending on the project size and the amount, it depends. But usually 40% is a good average to consider. After you get the 40%, you start giving them the drawings, mood boards, etc., right? Then when it comes to the execution phase, normally this includes materials, contractor labors, etc., right? So usually how I do it, I need to get the balance 50% in this project cost while you're executing, whether this is weekly, whether this is monthly, depending on how many installments. I always say you should do it at least every twice a week. Don't keep very big gaps. Or if the project is very, very big and it goes on for really long, then at least once a month. Every week becomes too much. So I would say between 2 weeks to 4 weeks, you should do multiple divisions so that you get a total 50% before the last 10% of your project. So 40% advance and 50% should be divided based on the number of weeks and months, depending how long the project is. And the last 10% should only be after the handover. But before you do the handover, make sure you have 90% of the money with you. If you are being like the client has not paid you and you are continuing to do the project, you are continuing to get your contractors to do it, don't cry when the client doesn't pay you because you are not asking for the money before. If the client is not paying you before, stall the work. Do not continue it. Be polite, be nice when you talk to them, but do not continue the work if before the handover you have not received at least 90% of the project. Trust me, this is my golden rule from day one of me executing my first project ever. And that is the reason I can vouch and tell you I have, touchwood, never had a single client who has not paid me till date. And the simple logic is before the final handover, if you are continuing the project without the payments coming in, then there's this problem in your system. There's a problem in your boundary with the contract, not communicating to them when they have to make the purchases. They should not make you should not buy the material and then give the bill to the client. Let the client make the purchases of the material. You just do the approval. I mean, that's my personal way of doing it. I know a lot of designers where they make the material payment and then they take it from the client. I don't believe in ever doing that. I have always been like, this is the bill, give it to the client makes the payment, then the material comes to site. And because of that, I never have the headache that this ply has come, this laminate has come, this pot has come, and now who's going to make the payment? For my mental satisfaction, for my stress of money not going out of my pocket, I have a strong rule: take a 40%, take a breakup of 50%, depending on the weeks and months. In that, if the client is making the payments for the material, or if you are buying the material, let the client directly pay the material to the vendor as much as possible. Whether it is one pin of 10 rupees or whether it is a marble of 1 lakh rupees. I have this golden rule that I will not pay 1 rupee from my account. You pay directly for the materials. And because of that, I have less taxes to pay. It comes less in my invoices. I don't know, it's just been easier for me. Or the contractor manages it. But don't take it on your head. Because if supposing something has gone wrong with the material, something has happened, you have made the payment, and towards the end, the client is like doing chuck, chick, chick that this is too much, that is not wrong, I will not pay you. No one else is stuck with the money but you and your contractor. And you don't want to be in that situation. Right? So I'm going to do a quick summary of this entire thing before we get into understanding how you can do your price points. So but this is such an important part of getting your client, because if you don't know how to price your packages, if you don't know how to communicate, there's no point in getting the client. You will lose the client. So that is why understanding this is, and a lot of designers will not show you these numbers. A lot of designers will not tell you how to do this. But trust me, this is, I think, the only thing that I wish I knew earlier. And till date, I use the same method.
वाला जो पॉइंट था उसमें बस वही था कि जो मटेरियल है वो आपको क्लाइंट को ही करना है.
Yes. If you don't want to be stuck with payments, trust me, I have spoken to so many designers, and every time they tell me that their money is stuck, 90% of the time it's the material money that is stuck. So why take that only onto you? It's not your headache. You are a designer. You are not a vendor that the money should be stuck with you, because you will keep paying. Why do you pay? Because you are connected to the project. So you don't want to my project stalls. You be like, "Arey, chalo, let me do it." But hello, it's the client's actual house or the client's office. Let them be more worried, na. You do your designing. So let them pay. And don't be like abhi ka abhi pay me 10 lakh. No, don't be silly. Plan it out. That is why that BOQ is important. But you tell them well in advance, like this is going to be the approximate cost. And 1 or 2 weeks before, give them the amount they need to pay. Have a system in that also. Right?
Yes.
So if the client knows that 2 weeks before I have to make this amount ka arrangement for this amount, they will keep that arrangement. Right? And there are a lot of other secrets I want to share so much with you guys, but there's so many secrets, like communicate, say what's happening on site, update them every week, give one personal voice note. These are things that build trust. These are the reasons that these are the small actions you take, right? Which will make the client not even if you make one mistake, now they'll be like, "Ha, chalega." Like she means good. She's doing good. We're humans, we are bound to make mistakes, right?
बिल्कुल.
But they let it go. Like I remember once, like in my initial days, I made one silly mistake where I was doing a door of the kitchen, and my one groove line didn't match something on the TV line, and I was so stressed, like, oh my god, this is going to spoil the whole look. I sent a picture before the reason how it helped me is before the client can tell me, I went aside, I took a picture, and I sent it to the client saying that, hey, I'm really sorry. This completely went wrong from my part. I took ownership of my mistake. I gave a solution to the problem, and I told them, I explained everything. And I said, if you want to cut this from my thing, I understand. You know what they said? No, don't worry. I'm just happy you told us this issue. So, how you communicate, when you communicate, makes all the difference. So if they would have caught the mistake and they would have come to me, they may not have agreed. Right? So own up to your mistakes, they're only humans. And see, your money will never stop. And they will actually pay you on time.
Yeah.
Right now regarding payments to the vendors and all. Are you telling it in the scenario where we are dealing only with the design, or is it same for
This
the
is
template?
with turnkey. The material part only comes in when it's turnkey, right? Otherwise, if it's only designing, you don't have to actually buy the material. Usually, you just
What
provide
about
the
the payments
material.
done to the vendor?
Sorry?
What about the payments done to the vendors? So do we need to ask the client to pay directly to the vendor?
Course, all vendors payments, all contractor payments, everything I do directly from the client. The only money that has ever come into my account has always been just my fee amount. It will also help you with your taxes, because can you imagine when you have
Right.
30 L in your amounts every time, how much extra taxes you'll be paying? Like, be
Yeah,
mindful of that. Today, I don't want you to just get a small project, right? We're looking at big projects coming your way.
yeah, exactly. So generally what we are practicing right now is like for the model, we'll have a cut in modular or carpentry work, whatever it is,
Hmm.
modular or fall ceiling window. Um, Rest all will be generally done to the vendor itself. So
Hmm.
I'll have a cut for the design part, but it will be very minimal, like not the percentages what you are saying right now.
Hmm.
So we'll be just having some 10% something like that directly shown to the client as a designer fee. Rest all will be covering the margins in the woodwork. Is it the
So
correct right practice?
I
Or
personally don't believe in taking cuts. That's a very personal thing. Like if a client buys material, if a client buys furniture for client, I personally don't believe in taking cut because what I have seen is it's already that misunderstanding in the market all over the world that designers take money from um
no, I'll communicate it to the client. I'll say that we'll have margins in the woodwork. Apart from this, we are not taking in anything else. So you can pay them directly to the vendor is what I communicate. But they are not aware of how much percentage or the
No,
share
but can
will
I
be.
tell you something, Sagri? Even if it's one thing, right? I'll tell you what happens is like this is from my personal take. You can choose finally. What I have learned from talking to so many designers, trust me, I mean multiple designers all the time. Whenever I've met designers who take a cut, and whenever met designers who don't take a cut, what happens is because there is a misunderstanding in the market that maybe you're a good designer who's not doing anything wrong, but because the name in the market is that most designers take money from other people, there
Hmm.
is a trust disconnection between the designer and the client. And can I
Yes.
tell you that extra 5% or that extra 10% you will get from one project now is not going to be worth it because that trust factor, that ekdam transparent costing which you give now, one of my USP is I give transparent costing. You can ask any of my clients why do they
Okay.
all come back to me? Because of my transparent costing. That extra 10,000 now, which you will get, or that extra 20,000 you will get now, in my
Yeah,
opinion,
actually, there
not
won't
worth
be
it.
much difference. But my only concern is like if I'm charging a 2 BHK or a 3 BHK client with 5-7 lakhs, the right now the clients who I'm getting are not in a mindset to might be I need to look at bigger ticket clients. Might be they'll be ready to pay, but this 5-7 lakhs is a very big number for them because like they may feel like in this one I can complete a room or something like that. And also, as you are saying, there's wrong practice in the market as well as they are comparing it with other designers.
Yeah,
They were like so many of them are not specifically showing any design fee, so it's drastically affecting, like it's kind of a wrong notion is already there in the market, like specifically paying this much amount for only design is what.
exactly.
Yeah, so
Exactly,
that's
because
getting.
I always feel it's better to not take that 10,000 or that I'm just giving 10,000 as a figure, whatever your figure is, right? I always believe not taking that and instead adding it in your project design fee cost. And when you're saying that the clients are not willing to pay those amounts, trust me, when you do everything that I'm telling you guys to do, like create the content, position yourself, do the pricing do the way you talk and all. If it's working for me, if it's working for so many other designers who've been students in the past, there is no way that it's not going to work for you, right? If you're going to talk to somebody who cannot afford even a Cadbury to buy some like Royce chocolate or like very premium chocolate, then you're going to the wrong market itself. Your content
Yeah, exactly.
your content positioning is only going to get you into the right firstly clientele.
Yeah, actually, I'm the same issue is happening with me. I'm already in that loop where I'm getting only projects between 15 to 25 lakhs.
Got
So
it.
even if I wanted to target the higher ticket clients, I'm already in this loop. I need to stop this one and need to
So I
reprocess
wouldn't say
my.
fully stop. Realistically, you don't want to go broke in one day. So keep that as a backup, but start your content and all, which we'll do in the next session, right? To
Okay.
position yourself only for that one. Remember that one client avatar which you guys did? You are
Yes,
now
yes.
posting your content only for that one luxury, high level client. So if you're only going to be posting to that one client, only that kind of client is going to come out to reach to you. So that is why these numbers, which is now looking like, oh my God, this is too much. Now, trust me, when those clients say yes to these amounts, you will be like, you're right. For example, another student, right, in the previous batch, he was charging, I don't even want to say the number because I'm embarrassed that I was feeling so bad for him. He was charging such a low amount just because everyone around him was charging that much. We repositioned him on Instagram. He started charging, and he's like, "Ma'am, believe it or not, the person has paid me that amount." It was in his head that because other people were charging that much, that's what he should charge. And I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, I can't believe you're charging. You're so good at what you do. He was just not having the confidence on how to talk to the client and how to package it. The minute he gave those three packages, which we're discussing now, you see automatically the client will have options. When the client has options, they choose the mid one. And then slowly, you see, you'll keep increasing your price. You'll keep increasing your price. And the chances of the client saying no will be almost nil because A, the people who are coming have that income. The way you're charging, the way you're explaining, everything will change. So it's almost like a 90% chance that it's already a yeah,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Looking forward for that shift.
You will. Mindset, start working on your mindset, guys.
Yes.
Process
Yes.
I can
True.
teach you. Mindset, I don't know how to teach you.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different from my place, and the rate is a little bit different, but the theory I think is the same. Yeah, it's all
Okay.
good. Country, our labor is normally double from the material cost, but from what your table is in the opposite way, but I can revert it
Oh,
from my own.
really?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Interesting to know. Let me do some research on that for you.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I'll let you know because this so a quick summary of everything we've discussed so far, right? So what we're doing today is we're building a three-tier pricing ladder. Reason being clients always like options, so don't always give them one option. When you're selling a service, don't only do mood boards, drawings, explain and understand the client more. They're also buying things which are going to help them save time, avoid expenses, right? Understand the client problem. If they don't know where to begin, don't directly offer them a turnkey package. Do a design consultation, a paid design consultation. If they want only design, provide them only design package. If they're looking for everything, give them a stress-free turnkey interior package. So understand the client problem, understand what they want from you, and then put the right offer based on what offers you have. So the one question you can always ask is what problem you are solving, right? The second step is to understand and explain to the client the entire client journey. We'll be going deeper into this in the next few sessions, but to give you a very simple brief, it starts from planning to designing to execution and the emotional and proper support that you give the client. When you're talking to the client, don't only mention the deliverables in terms of design and the steps you'll do it while execution, but actually brief them into understanding the entire process with the planning and most importantly the support you are going to give the client, whether it's emotional support, whether it's being there for them, being accountable, messaging them, helping them with the cost analysis, everything. Explain them all of this in detail because that's when they cannot compare you to another designer, right? The next thing is once the client comes to you and they ask you, okay, these are the things we want to do, how should you actually give them an understanding on what the project cost would be, right? So the project cost usually has three components. If you're doing a turnkey project, it includes design fee, the materials, and all the miscellaneous services. It includes the execution cost. The design fee is only where you, as an interior designer, are doing certain services like the consultation, the 3Ds, the BOQs. And if you're doing the turnkey, this also includes services like site coordination, going for the meetings, selecting the materials, right? If you are not doing a turnkey, then then number two and number three are not part of your fee. However, I feel like you should have a basic understanding on what these amounts are because you will seem superior and more knowledgeable when the client questions you this. Because most clients, when they want to do only design, also they usually always have the question, but what would be my approximate execution total cost? So you should know these numbers roughly, right? What is the material cost? Material cost is basically all the plywood, laminates, carpentry, electrical, plumbing, all the materials that you buy, that which goes to all your vendors, as well as miscellaneous services like your pest control, your deep cleaning, multiple minor things like this. Termites for like the cockroaches, etc. All those services comes into the miscellaneous cost, right? The third is the execution, which is your team of contractors. Your contractors include your carpenters, electricians, plumbers, painters, polish, everyone, POP. So all those people who do the actual physical work on site, they usually receive this amount, right? To give you a very basic understanding, a total of all these three give you 50L in this specific example. So if the design fee was 5L and the material cost was 30L and the execution contractor cost was 15L, the total for this specific example was 50L. Now, how do you get these costs? How do you understand how they charge, right? So usually the understanding is you have two types of client. I mean, you technically even have three. You have the low budget, but in this scenario, we're only referring to the mid budget and the high budget, right? So for the mid budget clients, usually ranging from a 1 BHK to a 6 BHK, your fee should be minimum 10%. Like I said, it can go more, but for a profitable business, I recommend at least go for a 10% design fee. um in most cases, the basic percentage of material cost is 60% of a project and the execution is around 30%, right? So when you do the understanding that the cost of your fee is, let's say, coming up to 1L, 1 BHK would, the material would turn out to be around 6L and the execution would be around 3L, totaling up to 10L. Similarly, for every BHK, I have worked out separate situations, and a 6 BHK in turn would be 7L fee, 42L material cost, and an execution of 21, giving you a total of 7L. But the basic breakup of a 10% fee, 60% material, and 30% execution is quite standard throughout for any mid-budget client. Coming to the same kind of client, but let's say if they have a high budget. So instead of a 10%, it would be a 15% fee minimum, I would recommend. For the material cost, it would be around, again, 55, 60, and the execution would again be 30%. Again, based on the BHK, I have given you individual amounts. So from a 1 BHK to a 6 BHK, refer to these amounts and understand how the breakup would be and how the total would be. So remember, this is a total project cost. When it comes to the specific your fee as a designer, there are three ways to do it, right? Usually you have a lump sum. You can just give one fixed fee. You can give a square feet, which is based on the size of the project, and we can do a percentage, which is on the total cost of the project. The first one, the lump sum amount, this I would recommend is best for people who are doing only designing without execution. How an example for this would be like, let's say for a 3 BHK design, we would do space planning, mood boards, multiple deliverables, and all of this would be for a fixed design fee of 2.5 without any execution included, right? This is normally very simple to calculate, easy to understand to share with the client. The disadvantage is that if the scope of work increases with terms of execution, and it's hard to actually calculate what the changes are on site, like minor changes on site, it's difficult to calculate and show to the client. So what happens is that when you have a fixed fee, if there are multiple minor changes, you will still end up getting 2.5 or the fixed amount you've decided. So it's not the best as per me with execution, but without execution, assuming you have a fixed amount, fixed scope of work, it's easy to tell the client that if the scope of work increases, the fee also increases, right? So this is best for that. The second option you have is for square feet. I normally recommend this maximum for builders and developers. The usual rate is starting from a 50 to above 1,000, depending on the level you are at. Again, these are only design fees. The advantage of this is it's super easy to calculate and it's easy to share. But the disadvantage is that, let's say in the same square feet, if the scope of work is a lot more, like if you have additional rooms, additional services, you end up getting the same amount if in the same square feet there were lesser deliverables and lesser scope. So keep that in mind when you're designing this, when you're using this as your design thing. An example would be like, let's say if your the apartment size given to you was 2,000, and let's say your design fee in this example was 150, you would just do 2,000 into 150, giving you a 3 lakh. So this is how you calculate it. Option 3 was the percentage, where how it works is that you have a project cost, which is something that you determined before. The best way to do this is to go through your top three projects, divide the total cost minus the design fee, divide only the total cost of the material and execution by the square feet. Do the average of the top three projects that you already have, whatever amount, whatever square feet rate you get, multiply that into the square feet of the project. That will be your project cost. Multiply that into the percentage. The percentage usually for designing is 5 to 15%, and for turnkey is 7.5 to 30. I would say if you're just starting out, 10% is a great way to start out. So how it would be is the project cost into the percentage. So let's say if it was 80 lakh into 10% gives you 8 lakh. This is how you get your project cost. So what happens is when the project changes come in, your percentage does not change. It is still 10%, but the project cost will keep increasing based on the changes happening on site. This is very good if you do it with the BOQ. But in the beginning, since making BOQs take a lot of time, I would recommend to get a lump sum, an approximate square foot amount, and then give it to the client. Once they approve it, you can give more in detail. Now, why this is helpful is because every time there's an increase in the project, there's your fee is also increasing. The disadvantage is it's a little time consuming because you have to keep making revisions and keep making the BOQs along the way. But I still feel it's worth it. The next thing is, which method should you choose? There is not one for all. I would say try and test which one works for you personally the most. The lump sum method, according to me, is best for only design packages. It's easy to sell and the profits are good for design. If you do square feet, this is good for resident, even commercial. This works. It's not very easy to sell because sometimes they argue with you with based on like doing, can you reduce it your square feet rate? So sometimes it's not very beneficial. And profit wise, I feel it's not very good because if you have a fixed square feet, if the deliverables and changes keep increasing, you still end up getting the same amount as your fee and the project cost. Percentage for me is very good for turnkey and especially luxury projects. It's easy to sell because it's just a percentage number and easy to calculate. A good starting point is at least minimum 10%. And I feel this is the most profitable when it comes to turnkey because every time the project increases, you get good amount of fee price increasing too, right? The next thing we spoke about is the payment schedule. So now when you get, well, let's say you've calculated all of this and you've given it to the client, right? It's really important that you don't start the work without an advance. Whether you're doing only designing or you're doing designing with turnkey, do not start a project without advance. Whether it's a friend, a family member, mother, father, whoever, make it a rule that only once you get the advance, you will start the project. I usually feel 40% is a good average to consider. 5-10% up down based on your project size and everything is fine, but I would say 40% is a good number to start with. After you get the advance, the last one is your handover stage. This is applicable only when it's a turnkey project, right? When you are handing over the project, that is the end of last few weeks of your project, you should have not more than 10% left. So between the advance and the final project, you should divide the 50% balance into multiple weeks or multiple months, depending on how long the project is and what all is included in the scope. But I always feel before the handover, 90% of your projects should come in. And as we discussed, as much as possible, let the client pay directly to the contractors, let the client directly pay to the the material vendors, and only let the client directly pay to you for your fee. When the same system can be used without turnkey, right? You can say, give me an advance of 40%. Then once you have done, let's say, only the designing of, let's say, the furniture layout and a couple of drawings, give me this. The next stage could be when I give you the 3D views and presentations, give me this. And then the final last part is left of maybe just tweaking a few changes, then you get the final 10%. So the system remains the same: advance, mid installments, and then final percentage. So the system remains the same whether you're doing designing or whether you're doing execution. So now what we're going to be talking about is the favorite part, which is the 3 price points of a ladder. Now, why do you have 3 price points, right? Let's say if you're buying an iPhone, does everyone buy a Pro Max? No. Why? Some buy an SC, some buy a Pro, some buy a Pro Max, right? Why is this pricing done like this for any product, not just iPhone? If you look at cars, if you look at anything, even if you look at travel packages, there are always options for you to choose, right? And the reason for those options is simple: pricing psychology. Before anybody buys anything from anyone, they want to understand what are the options they are given, to understand which one fits their specific need, right? So, based on everything we learned above, this is a quick example of the three price offers that I want you to make for yourself. Now, what is included in this price offers, right? First thing is your offer. You should mention what is your offer name. You should mention the price for that offer. What is the outcome your client is going to get by that offer? What are the deliverables you are going to give, the scope of work that is included in it? And most importantly, what is going to be the client journey? Because before you pitch this price to the client, you need to explain this thoroughly to your client. This is, of course, important, but not missing out on this is most important, right? So, this is going to be the basic understanding for the three services. Service one, usually I call it as a low ticket offer. This is for people or for clients who don't know you well enough, are hesitating to take your main package, or are unsure about if they even want to hire a designer, right? Or they're only looking for some clarity. So this is great for that. This is a low ticket offer. The next one is a mid ticket offer. This usually is for people who are only looking for designing or basic help when it comes to designing without the execution. Or sometimes it's like they have the design, they only need help with execution. But basically, only part of the project is where they need your help, right? The next is the high ticket offer. This is usually when they want to do the designing and the execution from you. And what happens with this is, here you are ensuring that you are giving them all the deliverables with the execution and everything. So it's really important to all have one, a low ticket, two, a mid ticket, and three, a high ticket. They all should have different pricing, different outcomes, different scope of work, and different client journeys. Now tell me something: when your client comes to you and you tell them that I have these three options, which one would you like, and you explain them everything, don't you think that instead of the client saying no, your fees are too high, they would want to understand more and actually have that conversation, and chances of them converting are going to be a lot higher if you share this, right? You look so experienced, you look so knowledgeable, you know exactly the steps. They know. Okay, now tell me something. What is the reason the client says no? Yeah, they'll say price, but what is the deep root reason why they say no? Is when they're unsure if this is going to help them, when they're not, if they don't have enough trust from you, if they don't know what is going to be the next steps. Now tell me something. If you were a client right now, and I tell you that if you go with this, we're first going to do a consultation, then you're going to show a floor plan, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this. I'm going to give you a full step by step journey. Aren't you going to feel so much more clarity? Rather than just saying, I'll give you layout, I'll give you budget, I'll give you material. But if I run you by step, okay, you can also add timeline, by the way. I've not added in this, but you can also add timeline that by week one, we will be doing this, week two, you will be here, whatever. So they have an understanding of what to expect where.
कुछ ना कुछ तो इसमें से पसंद कर ही लेगा जहां तक उसकी कैपेबिलिटी के हिसाब से.
And till now, most of y'all were just offering, I'm assuming, one, more or less, one service, thoda upar niche karke.
हाँ.
Right? So now somebody who's not sure of taking your high level client, and trust me, I can also tell you this, when most of my clients have taken my low ticket offer, they've been so happy with it that they've ended up going to layer 2 or 3 after. Just saying. This is just to kind of give them a sneak peek of how it is to work with you. So I want you guys to create this with specifically your three services, deliverables and the journey, nothing else. And in this, what I've written is I've given you 2 costs. I've written the designer fee, I've written the project fee, I've written the outcome that they're getting, everything. You guys excited to create your price ladder? Guys, this is what's going to get you money. You need to. This is what you're going to share with your client. I'm giving you like the gold.